Neighbor. I am the Martian ambassador.
Des Moines and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Max World Live. Max World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Max World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Max World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
6 minutes after 4 o'clock on the 5th day of April in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is Max World Live. Thanks to the listeners, to you, for participating in our program last hour. You humble me. I mean, you really do. I want to tell you one of the things that James said, James Weiss. What is that? Weiss?
Weiss.
He said that he could not, he was very, very impressed with the level of intelligence and understanding and questions that you had when you called in today. And I always knew that. We do research. It's not that I'm smart. We do research. We know who listens to this radio station. We don't know you by name, but we know you by demographic. We know you by income. We know you. It's an average in the industry. Don't think we're reading your mail or anything. We're not. But we know who listens to conservative talk radio, especially when it has a biblical worldview, which is what this is. And so thank you. These guys are important to me. I like these guys. They're doing a lot for us. And I just wanted them to get on the air and answer questions if you had any. And you did a great job. So thank you. And if it's okay, I'll have them back. I know that. I mean, I know we're usually talking about more social issues and stuff. But I just think it's important that I bring people. I bring people on this radio show that you can trust. I don't let, and I know you know this, but I just don't let any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Well, maybe a few Toms. But I just don't let any Tom. Somebody can't pay me to get on this show. They have to know what they're talking about. Now, we have advertisers, but even those, I don't know if you know this, but we screen those. You can't just call up and say, I want to advertise on the radio. We don't have that many slots. So we sit down, we meet with each advertiser, and we make sure that what they say they're going to offer, they're going to offer. They're going to underpromise and overdeliver. And they're going to be quality vendors, not vendors, but people that I can call, and that if I say, hey, call Brian Leach at Service Legends for furnace work, that I know he'll take care of you. Tom?
I was just going to say, I listened to half your show on the way over, and I was impressed with them, Mac. These are subjects that I know something about over the last 30, 40 years, and I thought that they were, you kind of expect some of these guys just to be peddlers. I don't know either one of them, but I just listened to them on the way over, and they had good answers. Now, the one question about why don't we just print our way out of debt?
From Amy?
Yeah, I would have answered that a little differently.
Well, answer it for me, because I still don't really, I just don't, I mean, if we don't back our money with anything, then why not just print them up and pay off the debtors?
Well, you're right. It is a fiat currency, and it has officially been a fiat currency since Nixon removed the gold.
You taught me that.
Yeah, back then. But and they have been doing what they can to print, especially since Obama's gone in there and we had the big crash in 2008. We have been printing trillions of dollars in stimulus to try to bring ourselves out of it. Unfortunately, right now, from an economic standpoint, we're in a deflationary cycle. Deflationary vortex that is yet to be culminated, and they can't bring us out. And Japan has been trying to bring themselves out of a deflationary vortex for 30 years.
Hey.
So, what are you going to say?
Well, Tom, what was behind the idea of Obama wanting to print or to mint that $1 trillion coin? What was that all about?
I don't know anything about a $1 trillion coin.
Well, he was kicking around the idea, underestimating our debt or whatever. Because people kept hammering about, well, we're going 18, 19 trillion. It's liable to be 22, 23 before he's out of office, whatever.
Oh, you want to know?
And he was kicking around the idea of taking away one of the things that Congress is supposed to do is coin and print money. And he was going to authorize the minting of $1 trillion coin.
It's hard to keep an eye all the time on a scoundrel like this.
Yeah,
$1 trillion coin.
Yes, $1 trillion coin. He was actually kicking around
with his
the idea.
picture on it.
Possibly.
But let me tell you what normally happens. If we were not in this deflationary cycle and everything else, we would eventually get to the point like we were in the 70s. And all you guys sitting around this table are old enough to remember what happened in the 70s with the inflationary spiral.
Yeah.
And it took some extensive measures from Volcker. Because if you don't stop, Mac, if you did what you were suggesting, $20 trillion for the national debt, and then let's print another $100 trillion to take care of the entitlement shortfall that we're looking at in years to come, you would be like Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe is a country that, without our resources, but just sought to print their way out of all of their problems. Pretty soon, it's like what happened in Germany in the late 20s. You remember in Germany, before it finally came to a grinding halt, they would bring wheelbarrows of cash around twice a day to the workers because what they were being paid yesterday was worth less than the day, and it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread.
Well, wouldn't Standards and Poor's and some of those companies downgrade our rating,
of
and
course.
we would end up paying more interest? A point in our interest would devastate us because
You roll over a certain level on inflation.
But hold on. You got to talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old.
All
If
right.
we don't have any debt, then there's no interest.
No, but Mac, when you destroy your currency, I mean the solvency and the respect. And it really based upon respect right now. We are still technically the international reserve currency for the world.
But
now, that's technical.
Dollar.
Yeah, the dollar is because back in the 1944, when they had the pact that was set up, the dollar was backed by gold, 850 million ounces of gold in our treasury, and it backed the gold. Now, we continued to spend in the 60s under Johnson, especially with the guns and butter budget, and we didn't pay any attention. The peg was still at $35 an ounce. And what Nixon should have done, I said even at the time, but certainly in hindsight, was not to shut the door and close the gold window, because at that point France and Germany were taking our gold. We went from about 850 million ounces down to somewhere between 200 to 300 million ounces, probably 250 area. And what that did, if he hadn't have done something, what he should have done is revalue it, not shut the window, but revalue it up to more like a $90 to $100 an ounce level. And then that would have kept us as an asset-backed currency. But a fiat currency is inherently unstable and eventually does collapse. And that's the way we're heading right now for a collapse of fiat currency. Yes, Frank?
well, isn't our whole reliability
Bretton
as a
Woods,
country,
by the way, was the word I was searching for. Bretton Woods in 44.
it's based on the good faith and credit of the United States of America.
It is now.
And if we ruin that good name, who's going to invest in the United States of America?
It is now, but before Nixon slammed the gold window, we were an asset-backed currency, which is where we had been for a long time. And an asset-backed currency does not require the faith of the individuals that are willing to receive it, because you know that you've got a hard asset, in this case gold,
right.
Something like that you can give. And it used to be on the dollar. Do you ever see any of the old dollars
Right.
where they say redeemable in gold?
Right.
So this is a discussion that I think we will have in the years to come, because it's not just 20 trillion, 19 to 20 trillion in a national debt. It's over 100 trillion in entitlements. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and now Obamacare, if we can't get rid of the doggone thing, is going to bankrupt this country, and we're going to have to deal with it. And we just can't, guys, print our way out of this. It's going to have to be dealt with.
They call that unfunded liabilities.
Yes.
Well, you were speaking of the old gold and silver certificates, right?
Yes.
Where you could actually take a certificate and redeem it for, a $20 gold piece. You had a $20 gold certificate. You could.
Silver was also good tender, and we had silver coinage. I have pre-65 silver coins still around. The half dollars, the quarters, and the dimes were made out of 90% silver, and they were legal tender. Absolutely. And they came out in the 60s because, again, what Johnson had done with
Silver dollar.
Yes, well, and silver dollars too, but mostly you saw the half dollars, the quarters, and the dimes. Pre-65, 64 they started to take it away. Pre-65 is still called junk silver, if my memory serves me.
So, yeah, we got a couple minutes.
Yeah,
So you said if sooner or later this is going to collapse.
absolutely.
Has to.
Tell me what America looks like when it collapses.
Well, because besides that, the entitlements are the third major rail in modern politics, and nobody's willing to touch it. If you would have taken steps some years ago, or even now, it wouldn't take as draconian a steps needed to. And I'm not encouraged with Trump saying he doesn't want to adjust any of the entitlement programs. That's disturbing because they need to be. Mac, when the Social Security was established back in the 30s, the average person didn't live to be 65.
Right.
And so that was very viable at that point, and we had a whole lot of workers. I don't remember the number, but there were a whole lot of workers supporting anybody.
16 to 28. It was something in that arena.
It was in that area, and now we're down to, what is it, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4?
I think it's 2, 2.5.
It's gonna, it's going
what are
the
you
wrong way.
talking about? 16 to 28.
Okay, you have 2 people paying into Social Security, 2 and 2.5 people paying in
for everybody that's receiving
one
it.
retiree.
And it used to be 20, 30 to 1, Mac, where you'd have all these workers and very few people sucking off the system. And now, well, we've adjusted it, but we need to adjust it more. Just because you hit 66, 67 doesn't mean you ought to be able to hit full retirement on Social Security. You need to continue to shift that out. And Trump's rhetoric, it would indicate he thinks everything's hunky-dory, and it's not.
Do you think the day will ever come that number will be negative?
Well,
in other words, one person paying for 2 retirees.
It's not supportable, and neither is long-term the fiat currency, because the temptation, guys, is once you no longer have an asset-backed currency, the temptation is to do what we've been doing for a long time, and that's living, because there's always more demand than there is supply, and people want handouts. And now we've got such a large percentage of the population that have got their handouts, even including our own farmers, for God's sakes, that they're Atlas shrugged. Atlas shrugged.
We'll talk about this when we come back. Tom Coates is in the house. We're live on The Truth. Sorry, I forgot you didn't have it.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage! Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Minutes after 4 o'clock, 4:21, 5th day of April in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy. You know, I see a lot of small groups around churches being fractured, being broken apart because you do business with friends rather than doing business with a professional. Now, you're going to say, wait a minute, Mac, are you telling me that if I do business with a friend that I'm not a professional? Yeah, I might. I have a hard time doing business with friends. Now, I have a great time making friends with people I do business with. But to have a relationship that is based on friends, brothers in Christ, Bible studies, something at church, and then all of a sudden to step in and try to do business with them, that's not how the relationship was built. And a good friend is going to know. And if a good friend's a stockbroker or the real estate agent or something like that, they're going to understand because the friendship is more important to you than it is the business. I've got somebody like that in my life. His name is Seth Walker. He is a RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts realtor. And I just referred him to a couple of people the other day. What?
I got the number. 515-577-3728. Call Seth.
It's like having O'Reilly here. You know what I mean? And if you're watching this on Webcast, you can see out of the corner of my eye, I'm going, what do you want?
What do you want?
Do you see what he does? He's over here dancing, you know, and trying to get my attention.
I got the number.
I saw it.
All right, 577-3728. But I've been in real estate a lot of years, and I tried to never do a real estate deal with people I was involved with in a personal relationship. It doesn't work. It hurts. It fractures the relationship. And if that relationship is a part of a bigger group, like a Bible study or something, it can really be tough. So the first thing I ask from you is grace. Grace for that friend of yours who chooses not to use you as an real estate agent or a CPA or a stockbroker or a car mechanic or whatever it is. Keep your friendship based in Jesus. Keep it in the Word. That's where it started. That's where it stays. If you do need a professional, especially in the real estate business, I'd recommend my guy, Seth Walker. But I don't want you to take my words for it. You interview him. You call up Seth. What's the number again, Frank?
515-577-3728.
Call him up and say, hey, Mac, I heard Mac talking about you on the radio, and I want to interview you. Would you be allowed may I be allowed to do that? And he'd say yes, and you can go on and do that. So check that out with Seth Walker. You're going to hear more and more. In fact, I did Tom, I don't know what you think about this, but I did a secret shopper.
Yes.
Oh, he could hear this. Never mind. Never mind.
That's a good way to do it, though, Mac.
Because I want to know.
Yeah.
How?
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah, how he takes care of people.
Let me wrap up my comment a little bit ago, and then we can move on to something else.
Well, why don't you read that text that we got? Because I love my listeners. They're the best in the world, and here's why.
It says, thank you, Tom Coates, and that was in capital letters. America needs to understand basic economics.
America should, and unfortunately, instead of the education, the indoctrination of our public schools is dumbing down our students for everything from economics to history to math and everything else, and it's a shame. That's why more and more people are educating their kids at home and homeschool them. And I think it's a travesty. But when I mentioned Atlas Shrugged, and I mentioned all the things like the Bretton Woods Agreement and the asset-backed currency, and I was talking off the air with Frank here. If you haven't read a classic piece of literature by Ayn Rand written back in the early 50s called Atlas Shrugged, you really ought to, because you would see that it's much more on point today than it was back in the 50s. And Mac, what in essence, she was a Russian immigrant, a brilliant lady, and she had quite a following. And what she, in essence, said was that when the government gets to the point that it taxes in a punitive fashion, it regulates in a punitive fashion. Talk about OSHA, EPA, all the others. And it publicly vilifies the people, the small percent of the people that are really the wealth creators in this country, the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the industrialists that actually make this country go. The burden becomes too great, and they walked away in her book. And they said, government, if you want it so bad, you can run it. And then eventually, at the end, the society breaks down into chaos. And they have a secret place that they go, and they build their own new little country, their own little enclave, where they have people that were some of the Donald Trumps, the great industrialists. They were shoeing horses in this secret place now, but they were enjoying it because, again, the enjoyment of the wealth creation and what they were doing and the job creation was once again without the government on its backs. And when we have flipped the society from more people riding in the wagon and fewer people pulling the wagon, and each man has a vote, our forefathers believed that you should have some land, should have some skin in the game before you were allowed to vote. Now, of course, they want illegal immigrants sneaking across the border. People sitting, the ACLU argued our own state should allow felons sitting in prison to have voting rights. When those people outnumber the givers, the takers do, our society is probably short time left.
When you speak about skin in the game, do you believe in a flat tax? Should we have eliminate the IRS, the current tax structure we have now, and go to a straight flat tax, no value-added taxes, etc.
All right,
because then everybody
question.
would be insured in having skin in the game, from the trillionaire, billionaire to the guy that makes $1. Everybody's putting in a percent.
I agree with that, and what ideally I would prefer is the fair tax. And here's why I actually prefer the flat tax, and everybody pays something, Frank, is far and light years better than what we've got right now. Bush intended well, but he put too many people off the rolls. Too many people in this country aren't paying any skin into the game. But the reason I like the fair tax better is that it actually taxes you on what you spend, and it incentivizes saving. Right now, the government, with the low interest rates and everything else, is trying, just like the Japanese, the most heavily indebted nation, industrialized in the world, is trying to do, is to force people to borrow and to spend. This way, it flips it around, and it would incentivize you to spend less and save more. Now, it would take some adjustment over a period of time, because we wouldn't go into that without some bumps in the road. But from an individual psyche, it would be far better to incentivize people to want to save more. Capital foundation is important, and spend a little less.
So would a fair tax be like a consumption tax?
And I'm not talking about a VAT tax.
No,
I'm talking about a
absolutely.
national sales tax, one shot only. Europe is suffering under the VAT tax, which is taxed at every stage of the game, and plus they've got income taxes and other things too. So no, and you'd have to do away with the ability to tax them on their earnings at the same time. You wouldn't be able to jump and have both of them. Go ahead, Mac.
I'm just trying to follow.
And
I'm amazed Frank's keeping up with you. Look at this. Tom Coates in the house on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for listening. It's 29 minutes after the hour, 5th day of April in the Lord's year 2016. You started to tell me a little bit ago, you said at some point, the rooster's going to come home to roost.
Right.
We're $20 billion in debt. There are more people sitting in the wagon than are pulling the wagon. Mm-hmm. What does an America, and maybe not so much from a money standpoint, but from a social standpoint, what does that look like?
What's it look like? And again, Mac, once upon a time we could be island America. The whole world is so interconnected now with our countries and our governments and our commerce that when one goes down, it threatens all the rest of them. And I read some articles by a guy named Jim Rickards just last night that talked about some things going both in Japan and China. And China is slowing down much more than they're willing to admit to. And there's some issues because the Chinese yuan is tied to the U.S. dollar. And the fact that they had to devalue their yuan, their currency, this last year has not solved all their problems. And since their whole economy is based upon export, the issue of the currency wars that have been going on in this world for the last quite a few years have a real impact on them. And we've been stronger on our dollar, and that has pulled their yuan up and made them even less competitive because they got their edge over everybody else by slicing their currency value in half and then doing a hard peg to the U.S. dollar. That is starting to unravel for them. And the Japanese, like I say, they have actually now played around with negative interest rates, guys, if you can imagine this. And even Yellen has talked about it.
They talked about that last hour.
Yeah.
The guys from Weiss and Markle did.
All right. They tell you what the upshot of negative interest rates has done to the Japanese?
No. I mean,
the motive was to try to spur more spending, more borrowing, and more getting the velocity of the money moving within the economy. What it's done is just the opposite. The biggest demand item in Japan right now is home safes.
Yeah, you said that earlier.
And they've taken their yen out of the banks and they've stuck at home. They said, if you're going to, in essence, tax me, because that's what negative interest rates is, they're going to tax you for having your money in the banks. Well, I'll take it home. I'm going to have to pay a tax. I'm going to put the yen in my safe, and at least I won't have to pay somebody a tax.
So they're trying to force people out of saving money.
That's right. They're trying to do just the opposite, as our government has, too. That's much of the stimulus that we've seen, the trillions of dollars that the Treasury and the Fed have engineered to try to get the economy going, is to try to incentivize you with low interest rates to borrow and to spend. It hasn't been successful. They've got trillions of dollars in additional debt to show for it. And the Japanese, again, on a per capita basis, any way you look at it, the Japanese have been at it longer, and it hasn't helped them a bit. And so as they try these extreme measures, it actually backfires. And so instead of incentivize them to spend, it's incentivize them to hoard. It's backfiring, and they and the Chinese potentially are some of the linchpins that could have the whole thing come down on us, Mac. Europe is not going to help us out much.
And their population rate isn't doing them any good either, because if a married man and woman get together, they've got 4 parents to take care of, and they're having about 1 kid per family.
Which was some of the motivation for Europe, led by Germany, to bring in as many Muslims as they did, because their population rate is like 1.2 or something like that.
Well, when we did that program for Norwegian television, they talked about the fact that they are welcoming the Syrian refugees because their population's dropping because people aren't having children.
That was the motivation, but now they're finding so many problems with these people that they're actually starting to flip back. I heard a report out just today. They're now that not just the people that are having their wives and their daughters raped at night and molested. They're finding that these people do not want to assimilate into their culture. No, they want to dictate, and they will breed the native Europeans out of existence. Give them a few generations, and their Sharia law then will take over
by default.
And of course, we've had some of the same issues, but the Latinos have not been of that same kind of an ilk, and they to some degree are better at assimilating than the Muslims are.
Well, the white population, Asian population, black populations is all down. The 2 biggest growing populations in the world is Hispanic,
and
Muslim.
Yeah.
There's 1.6 billion of them now. So by default, Sharia law, if the world would last long enough, is coming in.
Right. And
because majority is going to rule.
Our replacement rate is not what it ought to be. It's far better than Japan or Europe.
Yeah.
But our replacement rate, and what we have made up for it, and we've continued to grow as a country in population rate because of our poor southern borders. Now, there's some other downside to that I don't like. But that is part of the reason that we have not had some of the same issues that Japan and Europe have had.
All right, we're going to take our next break. I want you to take the last 35 minutes of this show and cast it in bronze, because Frank and Tom are getting along. Mark this date, 5th of April, 2016.
My name's not Bradshaw.
We're coming back live here on The Truth.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
.438, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Hank, the Bible Answer Man, at 1-888-ASK-HANK. You can call him. You think, well, it's 22 minutes before the top of the hour, and then there's a few minutes of news. I mean, I don't want to call 25, 30 minutes early. Yeah, you do. They've got probably a 16 phone line tracker, and he won't take 16 calls in an hour. So you want to get there. You want to use your cell phone so you don't have long-distance bills. But you want to talk to Hank, then you better get on there. You can talk to us on the phone line at 515-244-0077. Or you can text us at the Service Legends Truth Text Talk line at 515-809-0993. Do we have any text, Robert?
No, but I'd like to refer to it as a text line.
Okay.
Forget the voice.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I always say voice. Truth text line. It's not a voice line, but you can text, and Bob's here. You can also jump on webcast1live.com and chat with us. We have a live streaming chat. So while you're watching the program, now I'm going to mess you up here. I know I am, but we're sitting here in a radio studio doing this radio program. But we have 3 cameras and a producer by the name of Jeb. And you can watch this kind of like a Meet the Press. It's not fancy, okay? There's no fancy graphics or anything like that. But you can see us sitting here. And why do we do that? Transparency. Just because we can. We want to be a show that you believe in, that you trust. Not that we always say something you agree with. Anita showed me that yesterday. By the way, Anita, if you're listening today, thank you. I just love you. I had this woman call up Tom yesterday. Mm-hmm. She was just in my face, nicely. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciated her. But Anita, I'd like to have you on the radio one day. I'd like to find out what you're passionate about and then have you as a guest on the show. By the way, that isn't just for Anita. That's for anybody. Oh, Mac, now you're pulling my leg. You wouldn't let just anybody on the radio. Let Frank on, didn't I? I just want to know what you're passionate about. And if you can verbalize that and communicate that, you darn right I want you here. This is your show, not mine. If you've heard me say this before, fine. Tom, you and I have been together years. You've heard me say this over and over. I'm not the star. The guest and the caller is the star. Today, you're the star because you're a guest. I don't pontificate. I don't rattle off all day long. This is a show built around you and for you. So it's your input I need, and we'll take that any way we can get it. Text, email, on the phone, whatever. All right, Tom.
Let me, before we get into the other subject,
North
something
Carolina.
very topical here in Iowa and in other states. There was an op-ed piece in the Des Moines Register this last week about it. It's very misleading. It's called Fantasy Sports Bill.
Yes.
And it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I just got word a few minutes ago from a high source that the bill is probably, that passed the Senate, is probably going to die over on the House side. That would be a blessing. This is not the idea of putting in a few dollars in an office pool and doing a fantasy sports thing like a lot of young guys do. I've got 2 sons-in-law that have done that, and it's not a big deal. This is something far different. This is the wolf in sheep's clothing, guys. This is the opportunity for online daily gambling, and it will target. Now, right now, I wrote a piece. Did you see my op-ed piece in the paper that came out Sunday, Mac, about the casinos?
Oh, yeah, that you wrote.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I didn't say in there was that the demographics for the casinos is against them because most of their patrons are older people. They're sitting around, 80% of their money comes from slot machines. And the younger people are not particularly interested in sitting around all day long in front of a slot machine and pulling the handle or pushing a button. Are you with me?
I've heard somebody tell me that knows quite a bit about the situation that they will purposely, between I believe it's the 26th and the 10th of the month, turn the slot machines, the payouts, the percentage of the payouts down. And it just coincides with the old age pension checks. Mm-hmm. Then they turn the odds of payouts up after the 10th of the month.
Wouldn't surprise me a bit, Frank. I could go on, just like my letters, I could go on and on about the casinos. What I'm going to say here is not all the things that I said in my letter, but that the demographics are working against the casinos. And they're desperate to find some way to engage the younger people that are not willing to sit around on a slot machine stool all day and all night long pushing the buttons. What they are into is online. And this fantasy bill that they made all sorts of claims and things, and they really tried to very quietly come in with this thing, and it finally saw some light of day, so they had to come out with the op-ed piece last week to try to defend it. Well, my source said that the Republicans in the caucus on the House side were anything but receptive to it. Hopefully they got the message. What they really want, guys, is this opportunity to gamble online with your phones, with your iPads. Hit the younger generation. It will be a daily thing. There will eventually not even be the sporting contests that we're familiar with. Their long-term strategy is even to take it away from football, basketball, and baseball, and that kind of daily gambling that's going on right now, and eventually turned into games that you would compete against other people or against the computer, and then you would wager on how well you would do with these new fancy games that nobody's ever even heard of yet. That is a long-term strategy, and that would see, because FanDuel and DraftKings, the 2 big ones that you're hearing a lot about,
they were all over the Super Bowl.
That's right. Their business model is not sound. They're putting out so much money, their acquisition cost for getting somebody to come in and do it, and the way they can generate revenue is not valid. So the big casinos are sitting around hoping that they can, state by state, they're not even trying federal legislation, state by state, get their nose of the camel into the tent like they did with the lotteries, go in there quietly, be under the radar, and then the casinos would either merge or take over FanDuel and DraftKings.
And won't there always be a promise to help the school?
Oh, yes. Education funding is always, you're right, Frank. We're gonna do it for the children. I know it. But this... If this comes around, and they have passed a few state legislatures, if this comes around, you within 10, 15 years would not know what's going to go on. Your kids and the younger generation will be able to gamble on their cell phones or on their iPads in ways that you can't even dream of. It's a nightmare coming. And the casinos will be well served because it will take the demographics off of the death and dying list, and it will put it where they would like it, the whole population addicted to some kind of internet gambling.
All right, I want to play devil's advocate for just a second. That sounds like you want more government control over people.
No.
That's like you telling me I have to wear a safety belt or I have to wear a helmet or no?
No. In fact, it is the unholy alliance with the government and the gambling interests right now that have screwed us over, Mac. The unholy alliance that has allowed the casinos to come in, be regulated by the government. It's not even a regulation. It's more of a betterment league anymore. Whatever is in the best interest of the casino. Do you think it's proper, Mac, if you have a quick shop or a grocery store that's successful, can another chain with a quick shop or grocery store come in down the street and compete with you?
Yeah.
Do you think you can do that with the casinos in this state?
Okay.
It's protected monopoly status. What other business do we have that has protected monopoly status in this state? The lotteries, for instance, are terribly regressive tax. They prey on the lowest common denominator. If you're out there and you're a big lottery player, I'm sorry, but most of the lottery players are in the lowest socioeconomic rungs of the state. Of a country. They make the least, they spend the most, and it further impoverishes those people that are already in the social safety net. The lottery is an absolute disgrace because it preys on the people that are least able to afford it.
I want to validate something you talked about. I got talked into by a friend of mine of going out. We didn't have anything to do on Thanksgiving one day. He said, let's go to Prairie Meadows because he loves Prairie. I said, okay, I'll go out with you. I thought the parking lot would be empty. It was full on Thanksgiving Day, and it was all elderly people on crutches and wheelchairs, oxygen bottles, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going, don't these people have anything better to do on Thanksgiving? Don't they have family to spend time with, whatever? They're out there because they're lonely and they're spending money, and it's unbelievable that Prairie Meadows would be having that much participation from people on that given day.
I said, guys, that we tripled the number of problem and pathological gamblers once we introduced casinos to this state.
All right, we're coming back. Very short period of time. I want to find out what's going on in North Carolina with this religious freedom bill. It sounds like something isn't good in China or North Carolina. That's next, live on The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
You're 13. Ten minutes before the top of the hour, 4:50. Coming up at the top, Salem Radio Network News. And then 1-888-ASK Hank. Hank, the Bible Answer Man. Tom Coates in the house right now as we wrap up our second hour. Thank you very much for your time today. We kind of strayed off of our conversation of Jesus and social issues and talked a little bit about money and economy. We had the folks from Weiss and Merkel in and opened up my phone lines, and your questions were outstanding. So thank you very much. A little over my head, but I'll learn. I'm a slow learner, but I will learn. Now, Tom's in, and you've got something from a guy by the name of Mr. Bauer.
Yeah, Gary Bauer writes. In fact, if any of you want a letter that is written from a Christian perspective on the issues of the day, Gary Bauer has a free newsletter. And I highly recommend it. I've gotten it for years, and it really gives me additional input and perspective. One of the texts came in that said, stick to the Christian issues. Well, I think all of this, we're talking about finance, we're talking about the gambling that Iowa has engaged in. All these things are revolving around our Christian worldview, and this one that Bauer writes about today certainly is that. How is big business and government making it tough for the Christian people in North Carolina and their elected representatives? They are trying to bully North Carolina into accepting what, in essence, is open restrooms. If I'm a man and I wake up that morning and I identify as a woman, I can walk into a woman's restroom. And the people in North Carolina have said no. And they've said no emphatically, and the governor and the elected representatives are feeling the heat because many of the big businesses and Obama, they had 4 or 5 different federal bureaucracies landing on North Carolina trying to coerce and blackmail them into accepting the area of deviancy of the bathrooms. Frank, I know you've got some input on this.
Isn't that convenient? You wake up one morning and you're a guy and you feel like a woman. You want to go use the woman's restroom with nefarious thoughts on the mind?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to envision, gentlemen, that we'd even be talking about something like this today.
Well, you've got the NFL, who's threatening to pull the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You've got NASCAR, who's threatening to pull out of Charlotte. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a NASCAR fan. I got to tell you, that'd be... I don't know how you do. That's like taking Broadway out of New York.
Well, and most of those people are more redneck than anything, aren't they? I mean, why would they go along with this?
Well, they're like Frank.
they're caving to pressure. They're caving to sponsorship pressure.
PayPal is threatening to pull out. That's 600 jobs in Charlotte, North Carolina. Right? I mean, who wins? It sounds like either way, you and I lose.
Well, we were having this discussion the other day. I was with a banker friend of mine, and I said, you cannot appease the left wing in this country. The secular left wing is never going to be appeased. You think you throw them a bone, you think maybe the gay marriage thing coming out of the Supreme Court will satisfy them? Oh, no.
They don't sleep because then they're on to the next injustice.
Yes. And they found out that women in some state were paying $4 a year for, tampons or contraceptives that men don't have to, and they're suing over that. So you can't imagine the straining of the gnat in the filter fine enough to satisfy these people. And now the transgendered, which... By the way, as I understand it, this is a mental disorder that needs to be treated rather than inviting more into it. Self-destructive and as ill area of mental disorder, they don't need to be appeased and tried to be encouraged. They need to be treated. And instead, we've got a battle in North Carolina over bathrooms.
And we're not talking classically about what would be called a hermaphrodite. We're talking about normal people who have normal genitalia deciding one day they're the opposite sex.
Right.
Just because they feel like that a given day.
And how are you going, even if you say that, this guy believes he's a woman, he's a Bruce Jenner type of thing. How are you going to discriminate between that person and the sexual deviant and pervert that just wants to sneak into the bathroom and claim a legal right to do so to gawk at the ladies? It defies my imagination. I never thought I would be down here talking about an issue like this that but I never thought I would see a lot of things I've seen.
So let's think out loud for a minute. This isn't a question we all thought about, but let's everybody think. And if you're at home, you think about this and call in and answer. What in this country have we seen that we had this experiment into something, this social experiment, and the liberals were all behind it and said this is the greatest thing in the world, and then in the end, we see the disaster that it is?
Alcohol. Prohibition.
Well, wait, now you just said two different things.
Well, alcohol and prohibition is the same thing.
So are you saying you don't think we should have alcohol sales?
I think we should have stuck to our guns and stayed with prohibition.
Okay. Anybody else? Can anybody else think of anything? I mean, I'd like to tell you that divorce, I think, has almost ruined the family by making it so easy. No-fault divorce. I don't understand that. That's an oxymoron. No fault. You're going to take a family, you're going to take a sharp knife, and you're going to cut them down the middle, and there's nothing but blood and guts all over the place. And yet somehow we think that's supposed to be something we can say there's no fault on.
Well, and how about the rate of illegitimacy in this country, Mac? It wasn't that long ago that we were well under 20%, at least in the white community, and we weren't that high even in the black community. And now you've got 80 to 90% of the black births born out of wedlock, and I think we're pushing 30% or so in the white community. And there's no problem with distinguishing that a child brought up in a one-parent household is much more likely to have all sorts of problems, right?
How about the social experiment of gays in the military? That's a classic social experiment.
Did that not work out?
Well,
I don't think
it has. I mean, you won't hear it out of this administration because any officer that wants to speak up and say, I see problems here, is drummed out.
How about legalized marijuana in Colorado?
You think that's been a disaster?
I think, well, it's too early to tell, but I think the roosters are eventually going to come home to roost, and it's all going to be negative.
And the young people that are experimenting using marijuana regularly, their brains are shaped differently, and areas of mental disorders are much more common with regular drug users and marijuana users that start early. They say it's no harm. Well, they have shown that it does change the shape of the brain, and psychosis of all sorts are much more likely.
Longtime marijuana users are said to lose 8 points off their IQ.
Yeah. But I'm also saying there are mental illnesses that are much more likely to pop up.
Right.
Now, if you're later in life, it doesn't matter as much, but that early formation of the brain is going to be significantly changed by that early marijuana usage, and the federal government under Obama will not step in and enforce the federal drug laws, so they're letting places like Colorado and some other states go into not just medical marijuana. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about recreational use, and I witnessed it a lot when I was out in Colorado this last fall. It's significant, and it is destructive further to our society. I mean, we've got a long litany. I threw in gambling earlier. There's another one.
All right, Tom Coates, thanks for being here today. Jeb, thanks for producing. Frank and Bob, we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got a very interesting guest, Rick Box, Boxx. He's going to talk about how Jesus can be inside of your business. That'll be tomorrow here live on The Truth. Until I see you again, remember to forgive. Because as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.